Night settles over the city of Chang'an. Lanterns sway in the wind like breathing stars, and the streets are heavy with the scent of smoke and ink. A woman kneels beside a clay brazier in her courtyard. In her hands, a sheet of paper glimmers faintly with brushstrokes still wet. She reads the words once, softly, as though to someone standing just beyond sight. Then she folds the letter, places it into the fire, and watches the flame erase each line. For her, nothing is destroyed. The smoke carries the message upward, to her father in the realm of ancestors. The letter is gone, and the conversation has only just begun. The practice began in the Tang dynasty, the golden age of poetry and calligraphy. When paper first became common, its elegance made it sacred. To write upon it was already an act of reverence. At funerals, mourners started tucking messages between the folds of burial robes. Apologies, confessions, unfinished words. Later they began to burn them, believing that fire translated ink into breath, and breath into spirit. The earliest surviving fragment of a ghost letter, excavated near Dunhuang, reads simply, "If this finds you, know that we are well, and that spring has come." It is dated to the 8th century. To the Tang, burning paper was not loss but conversion. They called it xiaoji, filial transmission. The smoke was thought to rise like a courier between worlds, invisible yet dutiful. The more beautiful the calligraphy, the faster it reached heaven. Officials commissioned artisans to decorate their ghost letters with gold dust and silk cords. Commoners used rice paper and soot ink, sometimes writing with their own blood to strengthen the connection. The brazier became a household altar, a mailbox to the afterlife. Yet not all found comfort in the ritual. Some Confucian scholars condemned it as superstition, a waste of good paper in a time when books were rare. They argued that virtue should be written in the heart, not on documents for the dead. But the fires kept burning, and the letters kept rising. By the end of the Tang dynasty, the ghost letter had become as common as a prayer, joining poetry, commerce, and mourning in a single gesture. Writing that vanished to prove it was real. By the 11th century, China had grown wealthier, busier, and hungrier for ritual. In the Song capitals of Kaifeng and Hangzhou, markets appeared that sold nothing but paper for the dead, folded coins, robes, shoes, and scrolls of imitation decrees. Travelers called them markets of smoke. The air shimmered with ash. The streets smelled of burning pine and ink. What had once been a private devotion became a public economy. Entire families made their living crafting offerings that would never be used, only destroyed. The products evolved with imagination. One could buy a paper sedan chair for a beloved grandmother, a paper brush for a scholar, even a paper dog to guard the spirit's gate. Each was hand-painted and perfumed. Each would vanish in flame. Merchants kept catalogues listing afterlife luxuries, gold houses, servants, gardens, musical instruments. The living bought for the dead, as if furnishing a second world. The government alternated between tolerance and irritation. Some emperors praised the market for encouraging filial piety. Others saw waste and fire hazards. One city magistrate complained that his district's sky was darker at noon than at dusk, yet he too ordered a set of paper armor burned for his father's ghost. The contradiction defined the age: smoke as pollution and prayer, clutter and comfort. Burners themselves became specialists. They memorized prayers, managed heat, and folded paper in precise patterns to ensure full combustion. If a piece burned incompletely, it meant the message was trapped. A dangerous omen. Children learned early never to step on burnt ash. It might carry someone's words home. The song market of smoke blurred the line between craft and faith. Every flicker of flame was commerce, every curl of paper was love. To modern eyes, it might seem wasteful, even strange, yet the Song citizens saw in it the purest transaction, giving without keeping. In their world, devotion could only be proven by what one was willing to let disappear. As dusk fell over Kaifeng, the horizon glowed faintly red, a city in quiet correspondence with its dead. Somewhere, a poet wrote, "The living write with ink, the dead with smoke. Together, we compose eternity." By the 15th century, China's empire gleamed with ceremony. The Ming court transformed almost every act into ritual, and the burning of offerings became a spectacle of both wealth and belief. In cities like Nanjing and Suzhou, artisans began to specialize in paper effigies of impossible scale. Mansions, pavilions, even miniature bureaucracies made from bamboo, silk, and gilt paper. The custom came from an old proverb: "The rich must arrive in heaven as they left the earth, with gratitude and servants." So families built paper worlds to mirror their own. For noble burials, couriers were made from straw, horses from painted bamboo, and tables from carved pasteboard lacquered with gold. Some effigies contained wooden frames and weighed as much as a man. The most extravagant creation was known as the Golden House, an entire two-story residence crafted for the afterlife of a high-ranking minister. It took 40 craftsmen 3 months to complete, its windows covered with translucent silk, its floors dusted with powdered cinnabar to resemble red tile. When it was burned, the blaze lit the riverbank like sunrise. Witnesses wrote that it lifted to the sky as a city in flame, carrying its master home. The Ming believed that such extravagance proved filial piety. Love justified the cost, but critics saw vanity disguised as devotion. Neo-Confucian scholars warned that ghost offerings had become commerce, that the living were building the dead, a kingdom larger than their own. The emperor's council even issued decrees limiting the height of paper houses and the number of servants per offering. None of it worked. By the late Ming period, funeral architecture had become one of the most profitable trades in the capital. Workshops smelled of glue, ink, and smoke. Apprentices learned how to paint eyes on paper servants, not too vividly, lest they gain spirit before burning. Buyers haggled for celestial furniture as though shopping for a real estate beyond mortality. The flame had become the empire's second currency. Everything eventually paid its debt in fire. Yet beneath the extravagance, the same old tenderness remained. In private homes, families still burned letters alongside the palaces. Brief messages slipped between the walls of those golden mansions. "Don't be lonely," one reads. "Your son has learned to read." Even amid empire's vanity, the ritual's heart still beat quietly, love reduced to ash, then lifted like breath. By the 18th century, the empire had grown crowded, smoky, and uneasy. The Qing emperors inherited a capital where every festival filled the sky with the haze of burning paper. During Ghost Month, Beijing's canals clogged with ash so thick that officials described them as rivers of grey snow. The same devotion that once purified was now polluting the city. In 1765, the emperor issued what became known as the Edict of Ashes, a decree limiting the size of paper offerings and banning open fires near temples and waterways. The order was framed not as sacrilege, but as balance. "The living," it read, "must honor the dead without harming the realm they share." But enforcement proved impossible. The people believed that if a paper mansion or gold ingot were denied flame, its spirit would wander hungry. So they adapted. Families began burning in miniature, tiny houses no larger than a hand, folded from the thinnest gold-tinted paper. Courtyards filled with careful, controlled fires that flickered only a moment before fading. The government, satisfied with smaller smoke, looked away. Still, the problem persisted. City officials recorded that during major festivals, the air turned so thick that birds fell from the sky, mistaking the soot for night. Scholars debated whether this was moral decay or cosmic excess. Some wrote essays equating smoke with karma. If too much devotion rose too fast, heaven would close its ears until the air cleared. In rural provinces, the edict inspired creativity instead of restraint. Artisans invented new papers that burned slower and cleaner, rice fiber sheets dusted with mica that glowed blue in the flame. Their beauty revived the old allure. Temples once again shimmered with burning prayers, and though the state complained, it also quietly commissioned its own rituals. For the emperor's ancestors, the Bureau of Rites prepared controlled fires in bronze censers, each containing a scroll written in vermilion. May the smoke of this empire carry peace to its roots. The Edict of Ashes revealed a paradox that defines Chinese spirituality. Order cannot extinguish longing. The more rules the empire made, the more subtle the devotion became. By the end of the Qing, every household still kept a small brazier and a stack of folded paper money, ready for the next remembrance. Each spark was both defiance and faith, the human refusal to let love rest quietly underground. In the 21st century, the old custom survives, reshaped by cities, technology, and laws, but still glowing in courtyards and alleys across East and Southeast Asia. During Ghost Festival in Hong Kong, families gather beside apartment blocks, unfolding metal bins to hold their offerings. Paper mansions have shrunk into neat, ornate models sold at convenience shops. The air smells faintly of perfume and smoke. The city hums around it, neon lights reflecting off the silver paper. For a few nights each year, the living and the dead share the same skyline. Factories in Guangdong and Taiwan now mass-produce spirit goods. Not only robes and gold, but modern luxuries, paper cars, laptops, credit cards, even passports to heaven. The logic is unchanged, only the language of love evolves. As one shopkeeper explains, our ancestors built roads for us. Now we send them Wi-Fi. Each purchase carries humor and devotion at once, an intimate joke between generations. Environmental laws have tried to curb the fires. Some temples organize communal burning pits to reduce smoke. Others install electric spirit burners that simulate flame with red light. Many older worshippers find them soulless. Smoke has smell, says a grandmother interviewed in Chengdu. How can memory rise without smell? For her, the act is tactile, the heat on the hands, the paper curling like petals, the moment when ash takes flight. It is less about belief than participation, a conversation continued through motion. Yet even in modern restraint, the ritual retains its poetry. A young calligrapher in Taipei describes his practice as painting in order to vanish. Each year, he writes letters to his late teacher on rice paper infused with sandalwood, then burns them slowly, watching the characters twist into unreadable curls. When the words disappear, he says, the lesson begins again. Digital memorial apps now allow users to click a button and watch a virtual paper house dissolve into pixelated smoke. It is efficient, smokeless, and strangely cold. But on temple grounds and in narrow lanes, real fire still burns. Every spark whispers the same ancient conviction, that destruction can be a form of communication, that love requires release. From Tang courtyards to modern megacities, the act of burning paper remains one of humanity's most enduring gestures, a paradox made visible. The flame devours, yet it also delivers. The ash stains, yet it also sanctifies. Through smoke, the Chinese transform disgust into grace, waste into language, pollution into prayer. The ghost letter began as a daughter's farewell and grew into a civilization's correspondence with its dead. In each age it adapted, from silk scrolls to bottle-shaped pagodas, from golden mansions to printed currency. Across 13 centuries, the message never changed. Love must travel, even through fire. Every flick of a match continues a chain unbroken since the Tang poets. The living write, the flame translates, the smoke ascends. What outsiders see as superstition is, at its heart, literature. an invisible library of grief and gratitude. The air above every temple is filled with unwritten poems, their ink made of ash and light. When night falls over the Pearl River, you can still see the glow of small fires along its banks. They are modest, almost hidden, little circles of gold trembling in the dark. A family kneels, feeding folded paper into the flames, faces calm, eyes wet. In a few seconds the offerings are gone, their smoke rising toward the city's electric clouds. The smell lingers, resin, ink, something faintly sweet. The wind shifts, carrying it onward. Somewhere between heaven and earth, perhaps, a message arrives.